Welcome. We are the Ministry of the Real Truth, and today we are bringing you this particular book, which we found in public domain, public access. No copyright infringement or breach was intentional, and we bring it to all for educational purposes alone. This is the Book of Revelation, supposedly translated from the ancient Greek text by S.P.Tregelles, and there's something written here in Latin, supposedly from the Church Fathers, Augustine, and this was published around 1849, and it contains a prospectus of a critical edition of the Greek New Text with a historical sketch of the printed text by S.P.Tregelles. So this is basically brought to all, and the following review, listen to that very carefully, because it's basically what we, the Ministry of the Real Truth, have been doing since 2018 or 19, when we first created this YouTube channel, to try to get across to all people that your new modern Americanized modern English translations are all copies of copies of copies of copies of a copy, not from original manuscripts, long dead, no longer written or spoken, very old languages, i.e. the Tav Ashret or Aramaic, the Tav Ivri or Hebrew, or the very old Koine Greek, the original Ancient Koine Greek. They are probably a Latinized form of Greek, translation, and so forth. You'd have to listen to the review below. We'll play it in a second. We're just going to have a look at who this particular person was. S.P.Tregelles, born 30 January 1813, died 24th of April 1875, was an English biblical scholar, lexicographer, Christian Hebraist, textual critic and theologian. He was born at Wodehouse Place, Falmouth, of Quaker parents, but he himself was for many years in communion with the Plymouth Brethren, and then later in life became a Presbyterian or perhaps an Anglican. They're not too sure on that by the sounds of it. He was the son of Samuel Tregelles, 1789 to 1828, and his wife Dorothy, etc. And there's a lot of history of him. Works deciding that the Textus Receptus did not rest on ancient authority, Tregelles decided to publish a new version of the Greek text of the New Testament based on ancient manuscripts and the citations of the early church fathers. So ancient manuscripts, anything handwritten, a handwritten copy of a portion of the text of the Bible. Biblical manuscripts vary in size from tiny scrolls containing individual verses of the Jewish scriptures to huge polyglot codices containing both the Hebrew Bible, Tanakh, and the New Testament, etc. And these early church fathers would be Roman Catholic. The church fathers, early church fathers, Christian fathers, or fathers of the church, let's talk about the Roman Catholic Church, were ancient and influential Christian theologians and writers who established the intellectual and doctrinal foundations of Christianity. So there's a difference there between the original disciples of Christ, who didn't take on that Roman loaned Greek word Christos or Christus, and didn't like to be called Christians from these pagans. So they decided amongst themselves, we will use our Galilean Aramaic and refer to ourselves as Mashiachai, or followers of Yeshua Mashiach, or Jesus the Messiah. Deciding that the Textus Receptus did not rest on ancient authority, Tregelles decided to publish a new version of the Greek text of the New Testament based on ancient manuscripts and the citations of the early church fathers, his works paralleling or equaling that of German philologist and textual critic Karl Lachmann. Tregelles first became generally known through his Book of Revelation in Greek, edited from Ancient Authorities, 1844, which contained the announcement of his intention to prepare the new Greek New Testament. In 1845 he went to Rome, intending to collate the codex belonging to the Vatican. Although he was not allowed to copy the manuscript, he did note important readings. Now, why wasn't he allowed to copy it? Maybe they didn't want it out there. From Rome he went to Florence, Modena, Venice, Munich and Passau, reading and collating manuscripts. He returned to England in November 1846, continuing to collate manuscripts in the British Museum. Tregelles also visited Paris, Hamburg, Berlin, where he met Lachmann, and Leipzig, where he collaborated with Konstantin von Tischendorf, Dresden, Wolfenbüttel, and Utrecht. Most of his numerous publications had reference to his great critical edition of the New Testament, 1857 to 1872. They include an account of the printed text of the Greek New Testament, 1854, a new edition of T. H. Horne's Introduction, 1860, and Canon Muratorinius, earliest catalogue of the books of the New Testament, 1868. Tregelles was a member of the English Revision Committee, overseeing the preparation of the Bible translation known as the Revised Version, or English Revised Version, of which the New Testament was published in 1881, 6 years after his death. Tregelles also wrote Heads of Hebrew Grammar, 1852, translated Gesenius' Hebrew, Heinrich Friedrich Wilhelm Gesenius, a German Orientalist, lexicographer, Christian Hebraist, Lutheran theologian, biblical scholar and critic. So he translated Gesenius' Hebrew and Chaldee Lexicon, 1846-1857, from Latin, and was the author of a little work on the Jansenists. Jansenism was an early modern theological movement within Catholicism, Roman Catholicism, primarily active in the Kingdom of France, that arose in an attempt to reconcile their theological concepts of free will and divine grace. Jansenists claimed to profess the true doctrine of grace. Put forth, looks like a bit like a Jesuit. 1851, and of various works in exposition of a special eschatological, which is a minor branch of study within Christian theology, which deals with the doctrine of the last things, especially the second coming of Christ, or parousia. Eschatology, the word derives from two Greek roots meaning last and study. So his views, including remarks on the prophetic visions of Daniel, 1852, New Edition, 1864, and the hope of Christ's second coming, 1864. Like his cousin by marriage, Benjamin Willis Newton, who was instrumental in Tregelles' conversion and who helped finance publication of his books, Tregelles was a post-tribulationist. The post-tribulation rapture doctrine is the belief in a combined resurrection and rapture, or gathering of the saints after the Great Tribulation. An acquaintance said of Tregelles that he was able to shed a light upon any topic that might be introduced, but that to ask him a question was dangerous because doing so was like reaching to take a book and having the whole shelf fall precipitated upon your head. Despite his erudition, Tregelles was also a warm-hearted evangelical who wrote many hymns, now largely forgotten, the earliest of which were published in the Plymouth Brethren's Hymns for the Poor of the Flock, 1838. And there's some notes, references, external links below that. So this guy supposedly had, get rid of that one, or somebody had connections with the Nestle Iceland editors. Okay, we'll go back and listen to this review by this particular person below, so you can get a general idea of what we are all about and what we're trying to do.